Having a premature baby is heartbreaking. It's scary and hard and sad and isolating and traumatic and something that no one deserves to experience. But preemie parents know something that others don't. They know that even despite all the pain and struggle and tears and sleepless nights, having a premature baby is still really, really wonderful.
Preemie moms know loss. The loss of the dream of a healthy pregnancy, of a big pregnant belly and a fat crying baby, and the experience that they thought they were going to have that was going to look like everyone else's. They know fear and helplessness, wanting so desperately to help their children and take away their pain, wishing they could do anything to make sure they'd come home with them when this was all over. They know what it's like to imagine their futures and those of their children, and know that maybe it will be much harder than they ever imagined.
But they also know other things. They know what it's like to look at an impossibly tiny baby with paper-thin skin and eyes that can't yet open, attached to machines and IV lines, and still honestly feel overwhelming love, still honestly believing they are the most beautiful thing that has ever existed.
They know what it's like to find joy in the tiniest milestones, like little weight gains or moving on to CPAP or wearing clothes finally for the first time. They know what it's like to love someone so much that they would give anything to see them healthy and happy.
They know what it's like to realize finally that it doesn't really matter if their children have learning disabilities or motor issues or vision problems, or if they take forever to learn to walk, or even if they never learn, because as long as their children live, they'll figure the rest out.
They know that no matter how frustrated they may get when their children cry or yell or throw things or climb on something they aren't supposed to climb on, there's still a part of them remembering the time when their children's lungs weren't strong enough to cry, and when they didn't know if they'd ever yell or throw things or climb.
They know that every milestone, whatever it looks like, and whenever it's reached, it's a celebration.
There's a lot of variation in preemie outcomes, and some parents have it easier or harder than others. Some will struggle more and have a more complicated road to travel. But the one thing they know for sure, the one thing that the doctors and nurses and family and friends and all the other moms and dads of the world can't truly ever understand, is that when they look at their children, their perfect, gorgeous, amazing children, they see warriors, babies who have fought harder and overcome more than anyone could possibly have imagined, and that getting to be their parents is the best, most incredible thing that could have ever happened to them.
Having a premature baby might be one of the hardest things that has ever happened to them, but it might be just one of the best too. Hey guys, Barney Bunch here. For all of you complaining about Lincoln not being in the last video, here he is in all his glory. Happy baby. Well, is he happy? He's always happy, except the fact he was breaking 4 teeth earlier this week, so he's been kind of grumpy about that. But other than that, he's been great, so he's a happy little baby. So as you can already guess, probably by the title today, and not even just the title, but by the first part of the video that we put up, we're going to be talking a little bit about our time in the NICU and the struggles that came along with that and those kind of things. It's our goal through this page not only to have a good time and share our life, but also share the hard times in our life. We want to be real with you. You know, life is full of trials and life is full of hardships, and we'd like to share the hard times with you. And if it's able to be a help to somebody or encouragement to somebody as they go through that hard time, we'd like to be that encouragement to them. We spent a lot of time in the NICU with the twins and went through a lot of different things, and we're going to talk a little bit about that today in the video. So we'll jump right into it from there. Harmony?
So we were at we were in Elgin at a youth conference with our youth group. My husband is the youth pastor at our church, and I was 28 weeks pregnant, and it was my first pregnancy, and I had just been in, a lot of pain throughout the pregnancy. It was my first pregnancy, so I just assumed that's what being pregnant was like. At the end of the day, I would be in a lot of pain as I got pretty much past maybe 20, 22 weeks. I would be in a lot of pain at the end of the day. And I just thought, oh, that's normal, you know, twin pregnancy makes sense, right? So we were there and we had a big day on that Tuesday of the conference. Yep. We did a lot of walking. We went upstairs and we did paddle boats. And we did
Harmony
a lot.
did paddle boats, not me.
We just did a lot. And so we got done. We went back to the place we were staying, and it was late in the night. All the girls were in bed, and I was just in a lot of pain. And I tried to go to sleep. I couldn't. And I was struggling with the pain. It was pretty intense, and being 28 weeks, being my first pregnancy, I had never felt contractions before. I wasn't exactly sure what they would feel like, and being 28 weeks, I did not think about the possibility that I was in labor. The doctor told me that, you know, if we would get to, you know, 34, 36 weeks, you know, that's really good for twin pregnancies. And, you know, so I'm thinking, you know, 28 weeks, that's not labor, you know, I'm not in labor. But the pain progressed and continued. It was about 3 o'clock in the morning, and I tried to call Avery. He needed an answer.
Because I'm a hard sleeper. I
called again and again until he did answer. And I told him, Avery, there's something wrong. I'm in a lot of pain, and it's not going away. We probably need to go to the hospital. I wasn't sure about it, and I don't like to be dramatic. I'm not a dramatic person. I have a high pain tolerance, and I didn't want to be like that first-time mom, you know, going into the hospital, like, oh, honey, nothing's going on. You're just, you know, pregnant. Go home. Yeah. I didn't want to be a bother. That's the type of person that I am. But
so we were pretty much, as she called me, and I had her call my mom, because obviously I'm not a nurse, I'm not a doctor, I have no idea anything at this point. I thought if we made it through the day with me out without me getting pushed off the bed at night, that was a good night. So I had her call my mom, who's a nurse, and my mom answered, and in the process of talking, was able to determine that she was having contractions that we needed to go in. And so I loaded her up in the car, and I think I made it to Sherman faster than I've ever made it there before. And the whole time over, kind of contributing to what she said, she was like, there's going to be nothing wrong with me. I'm going to get there, and I'm going to be fine, and there's going to be no issues. But when we got there, the nursing team that was in the emergency room was really good. They got us back right away. They started checking her and everything like that. And they told us, I was asking kind of, as they were checking her over, ouch. He just bit me. I was asking kind of what was going on, what they were expecting, and they said, well, she's about 6 centimeters and 100% effaced. And me as the new father, I was like, well, that's good, right? And the nurse turned around and looked at me like I was an idiot.
He said, oh, good, we're only halfway.
Yeah, oh yeah, that's what I said. And the nurse turned around and looked at me, and she said, no, that's not what that means. That means these babies are probably going to be born today. And so that was a real punch in my stomach to me, because like the video so the doctors gave Harmony some medicine, and it slowed the contractions down. When we got there, she was having a contraction, every 3 minutes? About every 3 minutes. They were able to slow it down to every 5 minutes or 7 minutes or some number in between there. And so they were able to slow the contractions down, and it gave us about 8 hours worth of time before the babies were born. So about 11 o'clock, the doctor said, okay, it's time. And so we started going down there. I'm not sure what Harmony remembers from that, because they basically walked in and said, you're getting an epidural, and shoved a needle in her back, and then that was it. She didn't get a choice, nothing. They walked in and said that's what was going to happen. And at that point, we just said, yes, sir, yes, ma'am, and let it be what it was, because they knew better than we did. But we got down there, and they took us down. They took us right down to an operating room. They told us that a lot of times when a twin is born, the other baby, once that first twin comes out, the other baby will start swimming around in there, start moving around, and a lot of times will flip around because they enjoy the freedom they're having. And they were doing ultrasounds the whole time. And one of the good things I got out of that day, one of the kind of the highlights of my day, the things that I remember is as they were doing that, there was a lot of fear, there was a lot of worry, but they were doing the ultrasound. And they said, okay, which one of you has a butt chin? And I have a butt chin, but my beard covers it up because I got a good beard. But no, that wasn't prideful at all. But so that was kind of the highlight for me, as I had a butt chin, and my daughter was gonna have a butt chin. So that was kind of the top of my day. So we got down there, and there's a big medical team in there. Harmony had her own doctor, 2 nurses. Then there was an anesthesiologist. There was 3 more nurses for each baby and a doctor for each baby. So we were in good hands.
A lot of people.
Sure.
Any of you mamas out there, you get upset because there's like an extra person in your delivery room? I had like well over 10 people in
15 probably.
It was, I didn't really care at that point.
Sure.
I wasn't paying attention to that, but thinking about it now, I'm like, wow, that's exciting.
But the doctor was really, really good for Harmony. He helped Harmony stay distracted in the whole situation. I'll let you tell a little bit about
distracted in a good way.
Yeah.
Focused on, delivery and not on just the unknown, the craziness, the fear of what was going on. He was, not joking per se, but lighthearted.
Absolutely.
More, and keeping me focused on just delivering and getting through that before I worried about what was going to happen afterwards.
He was telling her things like, "Oh, that's not a push like you really mean it," and it was really relaxing. It was really calming for me to see the way that he was handling my wife, because it was a very scary time for me. I had no control over any situation anymore. My wife might have to get her stomach cut open and have surgery. My kids might not live, but so it was really comforting for me to have that happen. But then about, what was it, 11:07? 11:08. I always want to say 7, but I know it's 8. Quiet from the peanut gallery. Just kidding. But 11:08, Archer Allen was born, and then 11:15. Thankfully, Kinley didn't move around. She slid right into the position she needed to be in. 11:15, Kinley was born. Archer was born and he let out. He was kind of screaming a little bit, like whining, crying from the very beginning. So that was fine. But when Kinley was born, I remember when she was actually born, I remember hearing her take like one gasp. It was like and then nothing. And I didn't hear her breathe. I didn't see her move. Nothing. And they took her over to another incubator right away, and they started working on her. And it felt like an eternity for me. But the doctor I heard the doctor, and I heard him. I don't think you heard him. But I heard him saying, "I can't get the tube," and I'm trying. He wasn't able to get the breathing tube in because her airway was so small. And I remember thinking to myself, my daughter, I'm not going to get to tell her I love her. And so finally, one of the other doctors went over there, helped him, got her on a ventilator, and she was on life. She ended up being on life support for about 4 days. But they took them pretty quick. As soon as they were on air, on oxygen, and as soon as they were relatively stable, they were moved upstairs to finish being stabilized. And that was really the first time that I got to see them. Harmony was, the doctors were still working on Harmony, but they took me up to see them getting ready and everything like that. And that was the first time I actually got to look Archer in his eyes. And we were up there, and I knelt down next to where he was at, and I started talking to him. And he turned his head to the left and opened his eyes, and we made eye contact. And from there, I was kind of taken. but they were on Kinley was on life support. Archer was just on oxygen. Archer, from the very beginning, he was on oxygen for a while, but that was kind of least of his problems. He had more stomach issues than breathing problems. Kinley had more breathing problems than anything else. So after that, I'm not sure what was happening to Harmony during that time.
I don't remember.
Yeah, but
I just given birth. So
yeah,
there's that.
But at that time, by the time that the twins were actually born, we had all kinds of family support. I'm really, really thankful. My old pastor down Letson, he was there at the conference, so he was able to take the teenagers for me, so I didn't have to worry about that. And Pastor Swarga,
That's our pastor.
Yeah, Pastor Swarg is our pastor now. Yeah, my boss. He came up right away with his wife, and they were a really, really big blessing and a really big encouragement to us those first couple weeks especially. Then after that, they brought Harmony upstairs so that she could see the kiddos. And when they brought her up, they were readying the ambulances, right, to take them over. They took them about 40 minutes away to another hospital in the area, and Harmony wasn't allowed to go. She had to stay overnight. But we had a lot of family there, so some of the family stayed with Harmony, and I went to be with the twins. And from there, I think, when were you released?
It was in the middle of the next day, I think. No, I stayed a full day in the hospital. I'm trying to remember, and then I think sometime the second day is when I got released in the late morning sometime. That was a hard thing to have your babies and then not have them with you. Know that they are miles and miles away from you. As a new mom, or even, if you have a premature 10th baby, but to not have that just that closeness that comes after birth. That was a big deal for me. And I remember I hadn't cried yet at that point, and that was the first time I cried when I came back, and I had to say bye to them and see you later, because at that point they were stable, but they still had there was a lot of uncertainty in that, whether they would even make it. So to say bye to them and go back to my room and try and sleep, wasn't gonna happen. But
I think really the first 24 hours were the most critical. Like the first 20, really, if they made it through the first 24 to 48 hours, the doctors told us they stood a pretty good chance at surviving. But it was really that first, I think the first 24 hours that really made a difference. And it was hard for me to not, and I'm gonna say it's probably wasn't nearly as hard for me as it was for Harmony in that specific moment, because I got to go and I got to be with them. And it was hard for me to leave Harmony, but I knew that Harmony would rather me be with the kids at that point, when we had lots of family to sit with Harmony, but she wanted me to be with them, and so it was really it was so strange when I walked because we were in the small baby. So the NICU is broken up into different sections. There's
NICU we were at.
Yeah. So the NICU we were at was broken up into what? 5 different sections. So and went up from the smallest baby all the way up, and we were in the smallest unit, and I walked in there, and I remember being overwhelmed, not just because my twins were there, but I saw 10 other babies in there, and they were all in the same situation, and some even worse situations than what our twins were in. And in that unit, our twins were big babies. Archer was born at 3 pounds 5 ounces, and Kinley was born at 2 pounds 9 ounces, and that might not seem like a lot, but some of these babies were just over a pound. So they had a lot of hardships and a lot of struggles, and for those of you who might be going through something like that, we want to be an encouragement to you if you need something, so you let us know. But I think everybody handles that specific situation differently. We can say that we understand what you're going through, but we don't understand how you feel. That's something that the hardest thing was to express to someone how I feel about what's going on. People can be there and they can hug on you and they can love on you, but at the end of the day, it's not their baby. It's not their baby that's sitting there fighting for its life. And so we understand that there's a lot of unique difficulty that comes in your own life. But we were there, and I was there by myself, and I gave both of my kids, and I did the same thing for Lincoln. Obviously, his situation was different, but I knelt down next to their incubator, and I opened the door, and I gave each of them the gospel and told them I loved them, and we weren't allowed to hold them. Until we didn't get to hold them probably till the third day, I think, is the day we got to hold them. So for 2 days we sat there and we could rub their heads and we could do that. But basically that was the limit of what we got to do. We got to sit in there, we got to rub their head and tell them we love them. Then Harmony came there. Day number 2, she got there, and they were doing all kinds of tests, all kinds of scans. What was the first scan? Was that the brain scan? Was the first scan they did? And basically, in preemies, brain bleeds are common. There's different classes of brain bleeds, and so they were checking to see if our kids had any brain bleeds and do those tests from there. And I think they took the test. They came back later, and neither of our kids had brain bleeds. We had thousands, and I'm really not joking when I say thousands, maybe even tens of thousands of people praying for us. And if you're one of those people, I owe you a debt far greater than I could ever repay to you, and I'm sure thankful for you.
So the twins were in the small baby unit for about a week. During that time, they both graduated to CPAP. And then after a while, Archer moved to just a nasal cannula. And then they tried moving Kinley to a nasal cannula. Oh boy. And when they did that, her lungs were not strong enough yet, and she had a really hard time with it. And it caused her not just to go back to the CPAP, but they had to intubate her again, and she was back on the ventilator. I think she was only on it for about a day or two.
Probably, I think 2 days.
2 days. But you know, in the NICU, there's a lot of
mountaintops.
Yeah, you get small victories, and then sometimes there's those days that they have good days and bad days. There's days that stink, and you're just almost discouraged about their progress. But then some days, you know, they're awesome, and they gain weight, and they graduate, you know, from the CPAP to the cannula, and there's all these little things that you have to savor and
over the next unit.
And there's, you know, small victories are a big deal in the NICU. And after that, they moved out of the small baby unit and they went to a regular unit. It's a little bit more relaxed. In the small baby unit, it's very dark.
You're not allowed to talk very much.
You can't talk loudly. But when you go to a regular unit, and there's lights and the nurses, you're able to conversate and, you know, talk a little bit. You know, you can talk to your babies more and hold them.
Which makes your child, if you're going through it and you're looking for a bright side, it makes your child a good sleeper. They can sleep through anything after that.
Very true. There's a lot of alarms and
buzzers, beeps.
Yes, everything. You know, I can still hear those, you know, in my mind.
Every time we listen to one of those videos, I hear it.
It's something that never leaves you.
Yeah.
But after that, there were a couple setbacks. Kinley always, up until she had to be off oxygen for 48 hours to be able to go home. So up until those 48 hours before we left, she was on some sort of breathing assistance. And then Archer, his big struggle was his stomach. He had just immature bowels, and there was a point where his stomach was super irritated.
Oh wow!
And it's what they call loopy, which is where it's just swollen and bloated.
You can see the stuff moving through.
Because the baby's so small, you can see their intestines through their skin. And he went through a time where we talked about surgery and just in different sorts of intervention. And
every time God worked through it.
Yeah. God's people prayed, and praise the Lord, he never had to have surgery. Neither one of them have had surgery. And praise the Lord, he worked it out, and he was able to just give him time, and his intestines matured.
And now he screams. Like, yeah, I don't know if you heard that or not, but he's screaming now. Say hi, Archer. Say hi, Archer.
He's grumpy when he wakes up. So
yes, very grumpy.
But after we figured out his belly issue, it was really just a matter of
time.
Yeah, giving them time. Oh my goodness. So after we figured out Archer's stomach issues, it really was just a matter of giving them time to grow and develop. They were obviously tube fed for quite a while, but they transitioned amazingly to breastfeeding, and I was able to breastfeed them up to a year, till they were a year old. That was a huge blessing. There was some, like I said, struggles, but 57 days they were in the NICU, and God just gave us grace and gave us the help we needed, the support we needed.
Yeah.
The hospital where we were, the youth conference that we were at, was in Elgin, Illinois, and we live in Indiana. So we weren't close to home. We weren't close to any of our family. My family lived relatively close, but not, super close. And we were away from our church family, but in Elgin, we went to college in Elgin, and the college was so gracious to let us stay there for free through this whole time. And the Lord just really worked it out and provided our needs. Our church was so generous and gave us, people would send us gifts, financial gifts and gift cards, and
the church paid me through all of it, so I didn't lose a paycheck, which isn't something that happens anywhere else.
Right. And
the church was so kind to us, and Pastor Swargo, which is my pastor, was so kind and so good to us through that time.
God just worked it all out, and He met our needs, and He met the twins' needs, and they grew and they developed beautifully, and they when we took them home, which was in August, they were a little over 5 pounds, both of them. And now looking at pictures, I'm like, oh my goodness, they were so small.
Yeah.
When Lincoln was born, he was 7.5 pounds, and that's not a big baby, but compared to them, he was huge.
Yeah.
But
now these tanks are like 50 pounds.
Not 50. They're big. They're even now. We go to the doctor and they measure in the 100th percentile for height,
And
the
weight.
90 to 100th percentile for weight.
Not bad.
They're awesome, and God's good, and He just really grew us through that whole time. And we'll talk about what was really hard for us. What do you think was your hardest? I know what it is, but go ahead and tell us.
Well, my hardest day was definitely so Archer was having stomach problems again, and basically they were going to put a PICC line in him. So basically what a PICC line is, for those of you who might not know, or for those of you who do know, maybe a refresher for you. PICC line is basically an IV that can stay in for more than a day or two. It's more like weeks at a time. So basically they run it up through your arm, up underneath your armpit, and move it down by your heart. Well, they were doing that to Archer, and they let me stay in the room while it was being done. And they were rolling it, they were pushing it up his arm, and when it hit his armpit, instead of going through like it was supposed to, it rolled. And I remember Archer just screamed. And for those of you who know Archer, know that Archer now is just screaming all the time. But I never heard him scream before, and I didn't really usually hear him cry or anything like that because he wasn't strong enough to. And so I knew that this boy had to be in pain to scream that way. And I remember that was definitely the hardest. I remember going home that night, and I went to the bathroom in our room that we were staying at the college, and I sat on the floor and just cried. And I texted Pastor and I said, basically I told him I felt like there was no hope. Like I felt like we were never going to get out of there. We were never going to make it. And it still transfers, and the Lord through it all saw us through it. And but that even sometimes has affected me, later on in life. Just to be transparent. The first time they ever got shots was really, really, really. Like I pretty much had an emotional breakdown in the doctor's office because it brought me back to that time of listening to Archer scream in pain, and that was definitely the hardest time for me. And I felt so hopeless. I felt like this was never going to be over. I felt like no matter what we tried to do, nothing was going our way. We can't get his stomach figured out. We can't do any of this stuff. I just want to bring my babies home. And it was a dark place, and it's a dark place when you try to go out without the Lord, and it's a hard time to go through it. And the Lord was always there. He's always there for us. Always took care of us, and He was just real good through it all.
My hardest, I'm gonna say 2. Sorry, there's 2. It's like one is, I'll just say, but one of the biggest things for me was being a mom, a first-time mom. You just have these expectations, and to have those, you know, ripped away from you was really hard. And that, you know, it's selfish and not, you know, I don't know. It was a personal desire. That mostly it was that birth, and then to be able to just hold your babies and have them placed on your chest and have that those first few hours, just that experience of having that normal birth. And, you know, I didn't get to hold them till the 3rd day. And
you only got to hold one.
Yeah, and I only got to hold Archer that first day, and then had to wait till the 4th day to hold Kinley. But just that, those expectations being taken was hard and emotional. The second was one day, Avery had to go back to work about the last 2 or so weeks that they were in the NICU and I was there alone. And one day, Kinley had a heart murmur, and they'd taken her for an echocardiogram, and they sedated her during it to keep her still. And when they brought her back, she had a really hard time waking up from the anesthesia, so much so that she was turning purple, and it was really scary. They did chest compressions, and it was hard. It was really hard to watch. I was there watching it happen, and it was scary. And I remember I went out in the hallway afterwards, and I just broke. And I called Avery on the phone. I was like, I don't even remember what I said, but I just spilled my guts basically about everything that was going on. And it was, one of the nurses came out and she gave me a hug, and I got her, I like soaked her shirt with tears, and I'm sure some snot. But our NICU nurses were amazing, and I still remember most of their names. And this was a nurse named Nancy, and she came out and she just gave me a hug, and she told me, I'm sorry you had to see that, and she just made a big impact in my life, and I'm so grateful for all that they did for us and all that they do for everyone. NICU nurses are amazing, and that was probably one of my hardest days. She was so sweet. The next day, she brought in a gift for them, like an outfit for each of them, and it was the sweetest thing. She was getting ready to retire, and she was just funny. She was like ready to be out of there. I don't know how, she probably had to be close to probably around 60, probably 60 since she was retiring, and she was like ready to be gone, but she was the sweetest.
She was basically like her grandma.
Yeah, she was great. We loved her, but that was probably my hardest day, is watching her go through that and being alone while watching that. It was just, those last few weeks were rough because we were so close, but
sometimes it felt like so
far away at the same time. And that was my biggest thing.
You know, so in our time in the NICU, by no means do we feel like we've arrived, and by no means do we feel like we understand or that we know every situation that a NICU parent goes through. But as we sat there and we evaluated in our own life, you know, what are things that we went through? We think that there were a few stages that we went through as a NICU parent, and that if there's a way we can be encouragement through that, we'd like to be. So, you know, I really think that the first stage, in that whole scenario, the first stage was definitely just like a numbness. Like, this isn't really happening. Like, I'm gonna wake up and it's gonna be over, and your mind starts racing. The days are so long and the weeks are so short, and it's just your entire body is numb, your mind is numb, your everything is numb, and you just don't believe it's happening.
So for me, that numbness was the first few days, the unexpected delivery, and then the twins being taken away from us, and just that, it was like an out-of-body experience. Looking back on it, I can think through it, but in that time it was just kind of a blur. Don't really know what to feel, know what to think. Through that time, there was a verse that really I just kept repeating to myself. Psalm 56:3. What time I am afraid, I will trust in thee. And when I was in the hospital and we were told that the twins would be born, that day I just over and over repeated that to myself. What time I am afraid, I will trust in thee. What time I am afraid, I will trust in thee. And that was a huge blessing and encouragement to me. And then the second stage that was after we, figured out that they were going to make it, they were going to be okay, it would just take some time. There's that uncertainty, and that's really the second stage, that just not knowing what things are going to come up, what big struggles are they going to have, are they going to need surgery, and a lot of preemies do. Are they going to have learning disabilities later? Are they going to have things that come up, the unknowns and the uncertainty of just NICU life in general. You never know what's going to happen until you leave.
Uncertainty was definitely the worst stage for me. I don't like to admit it, but I am a worrier. I worry about things that are happening in life, and I worry about the repercussions, the ramifications of everything. And even from day one, the numbness was really over for me after the first couple days, and for me the uncertainty really set in. Even before the numbness wore off, the uncertainty hit me. Are they going to survive? Am I going to get to tell them I love them? And there was, do they need surgery? Is Kinley ever going to be off oxygen? Are there going to be more issues than what they're going through? Are their eyes going to be okay? Are their ears going to be okay? Are they going to be able to move? Are they going to be, there was all these things that I worried about, all these uncertainties that I had. And let me encourage you, if you're going through that, and if you're battling with the worry and you're battling with the uncertainty, not that your uncertainty is going to go away, but if I can encourage you to lean on the Lord during that time, that's the best thing for you to do, is just to trust God through it. God knows where you are, and God knows what you're going through, and though no one else in the world might know how you're feeling, God knows how you're feeling, and He knows your struggle, and really the uncertainty was hard, but when it's just important that we keep it in perspective. And I think the third stage, he's going crazy now, I'm sorry, but I think the third stage
was that waiting.
Just the waiting game. It was hard to sit there and wait and watch and try to figure everything out, and just wait and wait and wait, and it felt like it was never gonna end, but the waiting was definitely a hard part too. But I think really, if we were to try to boil it down, it would really be those three stages. Uncertainty. Uncertainty is such a big stage. Uncertainty is not just worry, but it's fear, but it's sorrow, it's depression, it's a lot of things that we don't necessarily like talking about, but it is those things. And let me encourage you. We're winding down the video. But let me encourage you, if you are a NICU parent, if your child is in the NICU, there is an end to it, and the time is hard now, and I know it might seem like it's never going to end. I know there might be a lot more questions than there are answers, and I know these things, but let me encourage you to lean on the Lord through this time, because He's somebody who can help you far greater than any doctor can ever help you. Someone who can help you far greater than any parent or friend or cousin or brother or sister can ever help you. He's the answer to those problems, and the answer to the solutions, or the answer to the solutions. That was stupid. But he's the one that you're gonna find that's gonna help you through that. If you've got any questions, if you need somebody to talk to, if you need somebody to cry to, if you need somebody just to sit there on the phone with you, we're willing to do that, because we understand the value of having someone there. We understand the value of knowing that there's someone there for us, and we're there for you. If you're a NICU parent, we're there for you. Let me encourage you, if you're a previous NICU parent, don't let your story be unheard. Let others know. You don't obviously have to go into super deep detail. I know we kind of did today, but be there for other NICU parents, because the same battles that you went through, and the same trials you went through, and the same struggles that you went through are the same trials and struggles that someone else is facing today.
1 Peter 5:7 says, casting all your care upon him, for he careth for you. And that's one of my favorite verses, and I love that verse, especially during that time in our life. Just the Lord will sustain you and keep you as long as you let him. You know, the first part of that verse is you have to act, and then he will, you know, carry your burdens, but you have to give them to him. And that was just an encouraging verse to me during that time. But anyway, let us know if you need anything, and if we can be a help, and we'll be here.
Absolutely. And kind of on to a different note, we're winding the video down, but as you may have noticed, and as you have made sure to let us know, we have hit 50 subscribers. So we are getting ready to order the DINO suits. We're trying to see, there are some places that let us order them in different colors, but most of those won't fit me because I'm a gargantuan person. They don't have size Chewbacca and dinosaur suits apparently. But so we're going to be getting that and taking care of that. So thank you for your support. We appreciate that. The next milestone you want to see, I know we haven't finished the first video yet, but the second Dino video will be at 100 subscribers. So help us hit that goal. We appreciate your love. We appreciate your support. And we hope that you've enjoyed this time with the Barney Bunch. So this is the Barney Bunch signing off for now.
Bye.
See ya.